Okay, day 3, 11 days of remembrance. And I'll read the rest of part 1. Okay. Ashamed to declare Hitler insane. Shadows were lingering over Berlin late on the afternoon of November 5th, 1937, where elite gathering of top generals and admirals in the room had filled into pushchairs in the little cabinet room at the Rue on the right House. The leaders and assembled by Adolf Hitler, dictator of the Third Reich, as now called Germany, then 48-year-old, slightly stood up at the beginning of Keystone spine. Here was the medium height and build, and his true tomb was a brush chrome rich Venetian of a cast with the Iron Cross First Class for valor that later event a unique description for enlisted men. Now the Fuhrer slunk into the little cabinet room. His generals and admirals spread under their ticket. Hitler was the military leader's secretary that shocked them with strolling around to lunch for the German people as a high brass event to the Czechoslovakia and Poland. Then, when the Rheinland had become self-sufficient, powerful, they planned to invade the Soviet Union. No doubt, entering the conquering Hitler suggested that France, which was thought to have the world's best and strongest army, and Great Britain would only launch a war of words and not interfere with the libertarian terms of the campaign unfolded and began unfolding. In closing his murdering the threat, the Fuhrer declared that he would accept all total as the generals and admirals would uh, gave him a timetable for conquest and return when to be launched in 1938 and completed by 1943. Bush filled the room as Hitler planned an occurrence on the event. However, he brushed off answering him claimed that the Great Britain and France were too timid to oppose him. Now it was clear Hitler was getting ready for a widespread war of conquest. There enlisted no doubt that his utter confidence for the general staff later told of a few confidence. This when Nose Junker cast in heroicness of brilliant victories and suffered concentration. Hitler was going to take Germany hell-bent down the road to event President and high-ranking officials, civilian leaders, and government officials. A cut over grouped the consequence of later decisions. General Ludwig a curious mixture of German generals and by foreign leaders. High honor, paying to Hitler coup defeat was drawn up by the consequences. The Führer was to be arrested in Berlin, but not killed. Rather, he would be put on trial before the German people with repercussions worked out. Our legal experts involved with the Susskies Capel the Comfort and the Corporal Adolf Hitler Medal history for the service in the Great War. It seemed to Hitler that Hitler had gone mad from being that cast consistently to Switzerland sent up a secret panel of psychologists to issue a report of his mental fitness. The keen military mind of the Kaiser could plan in minute detail at the proper time. General Erich Ferdinand, chief well at the officer, all thought Germany therefore was up Hitler and Berlin. At the same time, General Erwin von Rothman, the complete commander of Berlin military district, the general, to Hermann Göring and Heinrich Himmler, chief of the Gestapo and the SS, the Führer elite bodyguard. Himmler, a listed Catholic and former chicken farmer, was a rare mixture of crackpot and organized genius. As commander of Hitler's SS bodyguard, and Gestapo, he would be neutralized if consequences were plot, were Himmler and Göring threatened Hitler was to be exposed criminally insane and unfit to hold the office of Führer. His madness had proclaimed him to create Gestapo plans for world conquest that would destroy Germany forever as a nation. Once the trial judges ruled that Hitler was insane, he would be safely escorted with heavily armed guards around the clock in a mental institution. The civilian of Turkreins and Riverline German government lines now as well. Those Hitler of the Rural Sudan should have many of the German people against him. I don't really like institutions. The blonde beast rose backfires. The blonde beast rose backfires. Centered at the desk in Berlin in March 1900, Redmond Rothschild at the top 33 General Elite SS, one of the Third Reich's most powerful figures, voted against in Paris for SD, voted as the chief of the SD, Reg of the black uniformed SS, Adolf Hitler's private army, stolen in support that a Soviet group led by Mikhail Chervatsky, the Red Army's youngest marshal, was pretending to assassinate dictator Joseph Stalin, marching over the Sterling closure of a plot to convince the scene into a hardly backed scenario for Führer Adolf Hitler. Documents would be securely under that the Soviet generals commanding with German generals to murder Stalin. The evidence would then be planned in the Kremlin that the Führer and the other top Nazi officials could watch briefly from afar as Stalin wreaked bloody revenge on their conspirators. Moving with typical artillery, General also gave the task to a trusted aide, Alfred Nordrich, who had been assassin to many of Hitler's most to kidnapping and murder. Hitler rapidly collected a group of skilled foreigners, saved of whom served prison terms for pursuing their trade near Berlin. Discord cover over pursued journals in the case those of Soviet officials from Ministry Archives team members of the organization that the past 15 years when the Soviet and German armies had secretly collaborated to reach Renfeld goals within a few weeks. Khrushchev and of top Soviet military leaders and government officials notes that reports and secrets stamp and steals into the security. Meanwhile, SD agents planned hunt about the plot to murder Stalin with secrets that would assist the information reached the ears of the leaders of the NKVD, the Soviet intelligence agency. Richard Herzer different were to perform when sources friendly to Moscow discovered that the discovery would be held by the NKVD for a heavily priced Stalin Secret Service operator sneaked into Berlin and paid for the phony disorder where ruthlessness had earned that the nickname of Blood Beast among German officials. Soon learned that his endeavor had reached the purpose far beyond his wildest expectations. Stalin ordered the execution of not only young Marshal Trotsky, but also 7 other generals. Later, 7 of the 9 judges who had played at the trial of the doomed officers also murdered, but the actions were only in the beginning before the execution of the Red Army military men had concluded. The death toll reached 30,000, including 3 of every 5 marshals. The highly ambitious red-handed really kept Adolf Hitler informed about the ongoing bloodbath that Stalin was inflicting, because the Führer plans called for the eventual invasion and conquest of the Soviet Union to wipe out the minutes of communism. The leader of 9 million Germans showed the discipline with prize for the clever mentioned that they clearly weakened the Red Army. Neither Hitler nor Heinrich would live to learn that it had not been Stalin, but the blood beast would have been victimized by the Soviets' own crafty rise. After the war, evidence would be uncovered disclosing that Stalin had been planning to launch the bloodbath against the Red Army leaders, mainly weeks before Nicholas uh, forgot disorder. Moscow stubborn, the former White Russian Army general who had triggered Henschel's scheme was actually a double agent for the NKVD. Did his generals sabotage the Führer? On March 11, 1938, Hitler announced the Auschwitz, the union of the Third Reich and Austria, which 8 million people were largely ethnic Germans. of Austria to army and SS troops. The local of the Tyrol and in joined Hitler's plans for the invasion force to fold out Austria in exiles communications at 9 a.m. on March 12th. Admiral sped flying across the frontier. A day later, with a lieutenant colonel named Erwin Rommel in command of his army, the Fuhrer returned to the official life of Vienna, stayed from 1909 till 1913. There he had been incredibly impressed. A bus of the city felt he had once had him in the gutter. Well, Hertel was a Vienna until the German officers who had drawn up the tactical plan were highly stabilizing to Vienna response. Yet the outraged Austrian army rested. The Führer might well have suffered an embarrassment schedule that would have operated a door for Switzerland capable to launch, seemed to get entire invasion of sabotage only for us, but Führer, who now was a greater idol than ever in Germany. Her sang highlight plots with Goring. A tunic festival topped the sales at £290. General Hermann Goring was known behind the back as Der Prick Fatty, as he's been virtually extremely loyal to Hitler since hearing the future leader of Germany speak in 1922 in a Munich beer hall. However, he was secretly against over his leader's plans for conquest. On February 4, 1938, Adolf Hitler announced that he was taking over as commander of German armed forces as Jawbreaker. The title would be Der Führer on Oberst der Roten Kapitän Prussia. At the time, he served Federal Lieutenant Goering with the rank of Field Marshal, though ruthless. Der Haig had been one of the Third Reich's ruthless men, now with a less than trusting judge among thousands north of Berlin. As he reclaimed the pogrom, he called the enlisted Kershaw. In June 1938, Goering invented a Kershaw of cover, claiming that the scribble over the sheriff to friend's daughter of Vince Lynch Lloyd or Sophie had pronounced against the found divorced in 1920. She charged deftly since had retained her royal title and continued address as Your Service High Highness. Over the years, Swiftly had been a familiar figure fitting out the area of Europe, with funds deposited by elderly British admirers returned over during by constant told Princess Suffolk of Prussia to gain British alcatrazes to the Third Reich and thereby avoid a bloody war. as Hitler seemed avoiding London and compared with Edward of L.W. Halifax, the British Foreign Secretary. Goring had known Lord Halifax personally since the twilight of 1937, when the Breton and Berlin had a speech. Secondly, Halifax, the Germans knew they had been avoiding Frenchmen since boyhood, but the Wizard accepted peace in Europe, and actually the British German to killing with the Third Reich. The printing Corporal Adolf Hitler had been awarded the Iron Cross for valor in muddy trenches of France in the Great War. When approached by Hersens to Riddle then to Lord Halifax, a few days later Halifax and rode a long distance down into England. Europe held against Lord Halifax by Wellington. A bizarre kidnap scene of Captain Lieutenant Erich Gotham Nuremberg of in Wedhaven, Germany. Torval of the North America began putting his plate on shore. December 1927, one of Hitler's stockpile units, the spies to the United States, were safely built, mild-mannered Gunther Goethel Rothman had been born 26 years earlier in Chicago, where his father opened the security of the Austro-Hungarian Consulate. When Gunther was 2 years old, his father was transferred to Bremen, Germany. Learning that he was a U.S. citizen because of his birth there, he returned to Chicago at 18 to seek his fortune. Bremen across Cronin, he joined the U.S. Army in 1930 and later was booted out of the service when caught stealing money from the Fort Missoula. Without hopeful, found broke and jobless. Clinton had to do the contact with overwhelming Crown to officers. The Central Zone, he had settled the bonanza of military intelligence to then January 1938 presidential crown the eastern seaboard of the United States to Colonel Otto, commander of 67th Artillery, Henry W. T. Elton, command of the 72nd, President until from Craig's orders different to Elaine at Fort Totten. 8. I will be in not to divulge the nature of secret service to anyone. Arrive alone at 12:20 p.m. on a Pacific day and to wear civilian clothes on arrival at the McAlpin Colonel Total to the New York police of murder and had pulled off by communist agents. The strong armed men would record the communist newspaper published in New York with Orwell, the Atlantic, MI5, Great Britain, highly efficient intelligence service, had acted on a trip to Twitter, joined Twitter, New York, Twitter. MI5 knew that N. Sultan was obviously a Nazi master spy, but was unaware that N. Sultan was once of the Hitler's allies used to doctor Riddle German after Andrew Angelo made copies of couple letters, then carefully sealed the convention Angelo continued to Germany through the mail system. Captain Little MI5 knew of the supplies of Washington. When informed of the Nazi plot, the FBI alien Ursel it off, carrying he would never have been taken in by the phony orders from General Craig in Washington, but Anna can't tell the FBI working intelligence scientists were Commodore Craig, the Y agents, all were FBI counterparts. About 6 weeks later, on February 17, 1938, the New York Times carried a restatement that current inspector will be used for slipping more Nazi spies into the United States. The French consul janitor, French ambassador André Francais were regarded in global diplomatic studies and handled the volume shipping that needed only by London and New York City. It was late summer 1938 and the war clouds were settling to gather over Europe as Francis on a hunt Germany. Navy Captain John Brigade was one of the British Isles, but in early 1938 he found himself caught up in a new overall Navy captain to capital safe for over more than a year. One of the reasons Captain Brigade had chosen operating over to 11 a.m. after moving the documents scored down to many seasons over, over the choice of the French secret documents. Now he had sent ambassador ambassador once again an absolute spy that went over having a good item of German spy and would consequences photo from the prison. Meanwhile, Edward read at the handbook overrides the German police with General Herschel about Battle Berlin. The spy received a hero's welcome of the French ambassador documents. He had planned out the top secret list of the names of the French spies operating in the Third Reich. Careful a sky and intelligence. A year later, Adolf Hitler was ready to begin the war in Europe by invading Poland. Turgos led into action Alvaro election when the highly went into France in May 1940. French commanders had no eyes in Germany and their armies were taken by total surprise. A German general spies on himself. Early 1939, it was widely known throughout Europe that Adolf Hitler was preparing for war, that only no doubt that he joined by the creative Mussolini dictator of Italy in London, the 41-year-old Friedrich Wilhelm, chief of the air section of the British Secret Intelligence Service. SIS was on the elimination of the Third Reich. The few British agents planned their way to escape even before the Nazis came to power in 1933. Wilhelm settled time in Germany with the mission of founding the German leaders. the goals of being pro-Nazi to learn more was possible in the by British spymaster. Nazi payroll had put up that towards the end of 1938, the Nazis made it known that widespread was no one during no doubt, though Winterborn had become president of the German Air Force during the past 4 years. Part of the Third Reich were unit of aircraft factories and the cities of many military installations. Wertheim was back out on the Great War 20 years earlier. No mention that the archive of the Ministry United States aircraft by European-led auto the civilian British Imperial Airways to purchase take delivery of the aircraft. Then Air Ministry of the Rotom will take place is further cotton of a moreover had over away over Germany as Veda without being shot down by anti-aircraft guns or Luftwaffe pilots. Wilhelm and Cotton tried out the look at the 22 in Germany using the flight. Cotton was got left England in April 1909 and flying up 22,000 feet. He photographed every Italian air facility and naval base on the North African coast, and he did the same along with the northern Mediterranean Sea. It had been an intelligence bonanza. Now Waterloo was ready for the main event, pulling the tightly guarded Third Reich. Cotton flying trips to Berlin with the camera equipment underground. But the proposal Cotton knew that Berlin was refueling at Frankfurt, Hamburg, Erlangen, or another airfield at presence that as the Germans were left because Cotton to their show in Germany. He left the cameras in place, knowing that the Germans did not believe photos could be taken above 8,000 feet. The Lockheed extensive aircraft gained much attention of the general cousin to the Luftwaffe air fleet, by which I was in to peace Hitler looming over Poland a few weeks in the future. Perhaps helping my familiar cousin Cotton if he could ride in the Lockheed was over the Rhine River and Gernot Cotton overcome and Richard over the right bottom flap on the camera case over Cotton's and a facility and Israel was spying on himself. A baseball player's foresight. Warren Rollback was a hit by any yardstick that would well spoke German, French, Italian, Russian, and Japanese in an era which hardly any of his counterparts had even learned. College he had was the Boston Red Sox chain until so the 1930s caught over Southern Tokyo, February 1939, March over Trent, the President Roosevelt. Japanese were preparing for an armed cross with the United States, but he had virtually no specifications in the Global Intelligence Service. Roosevelt therefore was flying blind and regretted to Japan without knowing what the nation were doing behind its bamboo curtain. After the Japanese capital, burning nimble and province resulted to a large civilian hospital to see the U.S. consul's wife who was undergoing surgery. Once inside hospital, Moore carrying a suitcase that stairs and climbed to the roof. There he briefly looked around to see he was baffling lowered and removed a 16mm Bell and Honeywell movie camera with its took hundreds of feet of panoramic views of sprawling Tokyo, which would be seen for or could be seen from many miles in all directions. A little more 3 years later, while outlining Afghan to U.S. forces to begin kick around the Pacific, Japanese war machine Lieutenant Colonel James H. M. Jury, who was on April 18, 1942, dual flight of 16 B-25 bombers spilled off the car carrier Hornet, set a course for Tokyo, 800 miles away. 6 hours later, the first American bombs exploded over Japanese capital. Dual bold raid was put up splintered over the first, but the primary purpose was to lift the hearts and spirits of Japanese warlords to lose faith. They bombed that no American bomb would ever be dropped on Japanese homeland. James Doolittle was one of few insiders in the era, trailing a Soviet spy in England. Late in June 1939, the British Embassy was Washington sent alarming to London that the Soviet dictator's son was receiving military secrets, containing them in England. So, as well MI5, the security surveillance Soviet citizens, including a just showed that the Soviet trading in London. In early August, Dussasko boarded a train off the CP, and although the two MI5 men trailing him were puzzled about that of legit business of a high Soviet trade official could have been in a tiny town like Lincoln, Persian. After leaving the Tuscado train over, guess when Union cried, MI5 agents over MI5 men traded over Presley Park roads a few miles away. Southern Cross Tuscado was run now over the actual British agents. German wireless mission, now Enigma, could produce almost infinite different categories of the Enigma code. The German message would be safe because a new key was used each day. That meant that the odds of perhaps avoiding original U-boats, even small ships, represented the line. While Adolf Hitler was blamed for the development of the bomb by its creators, the Soviet Union also over the true mission, obtaining information about the Foreign Office Directorate of the British Park, the deeply high British bill about the ultra development had developed over, but the bomb, if there was the case, Hitler would have started in 1939 as an ultra. The German Signal Corps was 1939 also only to the another Soviet who was at journalist activities in England. That's the end of that. I will read part 2 tomorrow. And if you see a veteran, thank um, thank them, and if anyone that's sad, just ask them how they're doing, and that's the end. Thank you to the veterans who fought for me to be free, and thank you.